On the heels of the president's executive action on immigration, who pays the bill? With me is the chief economist at the Heritage Foundation and Fox News contributor, Stephen Moore. Good evening, Stephen.
Hi, Judge.
They say the illegals are not covered by Obamacare, but when they show up at a hospital, they have to receive care. Who pays for it?
Well, first of all, I should start by saying, I am very pro-immigration. I think immigration is good for our economy, and I think the vast majority of people who come here do help grow our economy and make our country stronger. I highly object to the way this is being done, Judge, and I think this is going to add significantly to the cost of our federal budget. I did some calculation. By the way, I do not believe for 1 minute. I don't think the American people should believe when the president says that these people who are going to be legalized will not be eligible for Obamacare or will not be eligible for other public welfare programs. I assure you, once they get legal status, they will be able to sign up for these programs. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised, Judge, if a year or two from now we're on this show together and President Obama is saying, look, I just signed up another 4 million people for Obamacare, as if that's kind of a success.
But temporary, Stephen, temporary amnesty is a quasi-legal status, yes?
Right. I mean, you're the legal person. I'm the economist here. What I'm saying is that in the past, when we've done these kinds of things, once a person gets the legal right to stay here, even if it's temporary, typically temporary becomes permanent, and then they are eligible for all these programs. And my point to you, Judge, is I've done some calculations. This could cost tens of billions of dollars a year to the taxpayer right in the wallet. And of course, the question is, who's going to pay that? How can we afford it when we already have a $500 billion a year budget deficit?
All right. Well, then let's talk about, and by the way, Stephen, I'm glad you mentioned, I mean, no one is against immigration. We are all the sons and daughters of immigrants. Come on, that's not the point. But the immigration laws were drafted and constructed so that some of the criteria involves whether or not you have a job, whether or not you're going to be a debt to society, and if you are, you don't get here. However, having said that,
by the way, let me just say something. That's a really important point, that the right of a sovereign nation is to decide who the most important decision our government makes is who can become an American and who cannot. That is our right as citizens and the Congress to make that decision. For the president to say whoever can jump over the fence can come in and get a legal status. That we basically ceded our immigration policy, and that way we're not going to get the best and brightest. And you can tell I'm hopping mad about this because you asked the question to the congressman, what does this mean for the future of immigration reform? I'm for immigration reform, but this has so poisoned the well, I don't see it getting done now.
Interesting. And what about the fact that, with Medicaid and I mean, New York is burdened with Medicaid as it is. If we've got 300,000 illegals who are entitled to Medicaid, who pays for that? I mean, everybody's taxes go up, clearly.
Right. And traditionally, you asked the question about what has been our policy in the past. It used to be when you came into this country, you had to prove that you would not become, quote, a public charge, which meant that you would not get welfare. And traditionally, immigrants have not been eligible for welfare. But what has happened under this president, I mean, my goodness, this is a president who thinks things like unemployment insurance and food stamps are a stimulus to the economy. So they've actually actively tried to sign up people, whether they're legal or illegal, for as many of these government programs as possible. That's why I'm deeply skeptical of the president's comments that they will not be eligible for the programs that he's trying to expand.
Do you think the president, by requiring this 5-year minimum residency requirement, is even in a position to know who these people are?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, we just don't have great records about who these people are. After that, they're in the underground economy. So the answer to your question is no. We don't know how long they've been here. We don't know a lot about what their health records are. We don't know if they've gone on welfare and things like that. That's another real problem with this law, is how do you enforce it? How do you decide who's eligible for the program and who's not?
All right. Stephen Moore, it's always good to have you here. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. And coming up, in the wake of the president's immigration action, sheriffs around the country warn American citizens could be in danger. One sheriff tells us why. That's next.